Welcome to another IQ Drug Product Pediatric webinar. My name is David and I'm working for AbbVie and also the current co-chair of the IQ Drug Product Pediatric Working Group. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Daniel Schafferberger. Daniel holds a degree in pharmacy from ETH Zurich and a doctorate in pharmacy from University of Lausanne, Switzerland. He also did his postdoctoral studies in the US. Daniel comes with a wealth of experience in pharmaceutical development and recently retired from Janssen R&D as Senior Director, CMC Leader, and he was also the co-chair of the J&J Internal Pediatric Formulation Network. And now he is an independent consultant and continues to volunteer in the field of pediatric CMC. Please welcome Dr. Daniel Schafferberger, who will present to us on the challenges in developing age-appropriate formulation for neglected tropical diseases. Pass to you, Daniel.
Thank you, David, for the kind introduction, and thank you to the IQ Consortium for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today on this topic. November 20th is the United Nations Universal Children's Day. We thought by organizing this webinar and talking about neglected tropical diseases, we can make a small contribution to the global efforts improving the lives of children worldwide. We thank you for spending your time with us today and celebrating this Children's Day with us. Next slide, please. Developing pediatric formulations is a complex task, and a number of seminars have been given already, focusing on various aspects. So today we would like to look at what are the additional challenges developing products for neglected tropical diseases. I propose that we have a look at those diseases, share some general thoughts on products, dosage forms, manufacturing, supply chain, go over the regulatory processes, have a look at organizations involved in these activities, and illustrate that with a couple of examples from soil-transmitted helminth infections, those are worm infections, schistosomiasis, and the learning from others. We'll have a Q&A session at the end, and as already mentioned, slides will be available to you. They might be a little bit busy, so I will not go through all details. I also would like to acknowledge my former colleagues at Janssen, colleagues at Merck KGaA in Germany, and other colleagues in my extended pediatric network for sharing content and helpful discussions in preparing for this webinar. Next slide. So let's have a look at what are neglected tropical diseases. And I would like to refer to WHO's website and their own definition. And let's quickly go through that. So neglected tropical diseases, or NTDs, are a diverse group of communicable diseases that prevail in tropical and subtropical conditions in 149 countries, affect more than 1 billion people, and cost developing economies billions of dollars every year. Populations living in poverty without adequate sanitation and in close contact with infectious vectors and domestic animals and livestock are those worst affected. WHO lists a number of diseases that fall in this category. To be honest, many of those I've never heard about. And today we have time just to focus on a couple of those. But there are many more, and these are really important diseases. Let's go to the next slide and share also another definition of NTDs. Just referring to what's posted by Wikipedia, just going to the second paragraph that I think is interesting. These diseases are contrasted with the big three infectious diseases, namely malaria, HIV/AIDS, and tuberculosis, which generally receive greater treatment and research funding. And that's really the point about why we call those neglected tropical diseases, because there's not that much funding, not that much research going on. Interesting also to comment that these neglected tropical diseases can create co-infections with HIV/AIDS or tuberculosis and make those diseases then more deadly. There are a number of organizations involved in fighting neglected tropical diseases. I'm posted here the fact sheet from the US Center for Disease Control. There are many others who also define and pursue activities, and I would recommend that you look at all those if you are going to work in this field. Let's have a look at products now, and that would be needed for neglected tropical diseases. First, let's have a look at the type of products. Starting on the left side on the slide, there are obviously the vaccines, very important. We are not talking about vaccines today. It's not in the scope of this particular working group of IQ. Then biologics and emerging biosimilars are also important, probably more on the costly side and less used nowadays. Also from a formulation side, in many cases, they are the same as the adult formulations, and we are not focusing on those, but we will focus in this webinar on small molecules. When we talk small molecules, many of you might be more familiar with developing products under patent protection, but those that are off patent are equally important to fight neglected tropical diseases. For the new molecular entities, most development programs are worldwide programs. It's very rare that you would just develop a new molecular entity for a regional or local approach, mostly for cost reasons. The off-patent product are really important, and those that are have shown value to fight neglected tropical diseases may be listed under WHO's list of essential medicines. However, many of those do not have age-appropriate pediatric formulations, and efforts are needed to come up with better formulations. We'll talk about this a little bit in this webinar. First, on the next slide, we'd like to look at what are general requirements for developing age-appropriate formulations for NTDs. First, the usual challenges that you may already be familiar with around acceptability, palatability, choice of excipients, that they are the same. And those topics may have been covered already in other webinars or will be in the future. What I would like to focus here is what would be additional, what are the things to focus on and to think about. And probably one of the most important topic will be on stability, because those neglected tropical diseases, as the name says, are mostly in zones with high temperature and high humidity, maybe in the climatic zone 4B, and the products have to be designed and developed accordingly. You cannot mitigate stability issues with restrictive storage conditions. Refrigeration is just not an easy way to achieve. And also you cannot try to mitigate stability issues with shortening of a shelf life, because those supply chains are very lengthy, and you don't want to have expiration of product and waste of products because of shelf life. So that's very important. Then you also are most likely dealing with large patient populations. That translates into huge volume forecasts for your products. This is probably different from what you're used to developing pediatric formulations for US and European markets, where you very often have very small commercial forecasts. Attention needs to be given to suitable packaging, primary and secondary, for those long and fragmented supply chains. If you have instructions for administration, how a product should be used, dosing instructions, please try to make those as simple as possible to avoid dosing errors in the field. Obviously, you have to be mindful of costs because that drives access to new products. Environmental impact should also be considered, particularly when you're dealing with these huge volume forecasts and large quantities. Going into regions with neglected tropical diseases require that you consider local culture and have an understanding of the health system, about health literacy, and also about other initiatives that might be ongoing in fields like education or sanitation. So in order to be coordinated with other efforts. If the product that you're developing for neglected tropical disease would be a donation product, then there are specific guidelines from WHO on donating medicines that you may want to consider. I should have added another bullet here on PK and PD. Malnutrition and differences in foods in regions with NTDs may affect the intestinal pH and or other parameters that would affect systemic absorption. This is an emerging topic. Maybe we can make this a subject of a focused future seminar. We may have a couple of colleagues from clinical pharmacology, maybe also Professor Sandra Klein in the audience, who have published on this. Very promising work, but maybe we can cover that in a separate meeting. Next, I would like to have a look at dosage forms. Now we need to go forward. Okay, dosage forms. Maybe I can first refer to a great review paper that Stephen Gerard from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, together with colleagues from UPFI, just published on innovations in pediatric drug formulations and administration technologies for low resource settings. What I see personally is a continued trend towards oral solid dosage forms, and I believe this also applies to products for neglected tropical diseases. You see a lot of dispersible tablets. You see granules, multiparticulates, sprinkle capsules, maybe mini tablets also in the future. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Not to forget suppositories. Although those may not be widely accepted in all regions of this world. Thin films have a potential, maybe more for low dose products. Maybe we are going to see microneedles. And one more word of advice, if any way possible, in the developing and design of products, if you can avoid dosing devices, that would be great. If you cannot do that, I'd like to share one idea to reduce dosing errors. That's using color coding. There's an opportunity that you look at weight bands that correlate with age and then correlate that with color zones that you can actually print on a dosing device. This has been successfully introduced for a product on WHO list of essential medicines, epinephrine injection, but it might also have an application for oral dosing syringes. Let's now have a look at mini tablets. And mini tablets are small tablets that are compressed and have something like 1 to 3 millimeters of diameter. They have a number of advantages that they can be coated when taste masking is an issue. They can also be designed as dispersible mini tablets that would help getting them through nasogastric tubes if that's needed, and they offer those flexibility. There were 2 workshops this year, one by IQ and MCERSI at the University of Maryland in Baltimore, and one at the annual UPFI Congress in Sweden. At those meetings, there were also device manufacturers that are now developing dispensers for mini tablets that can be just added, screwed on the regular primary container. Those devices might be too expensive for large-scale neglected tropical disease products. You also have an opportunity like Novartis did with Lamisil, just to fill mini tablets in a sachet. Obviously, then you'll lose all with the dosing flexibility. But I think the trend will continue. And we also have publications from the group of Professor Breitkreuz in Germany pushing the limit further down towards younger and younger children who might be able to take mini tablets. I also would like to refer to an excellent review article by Robert Strictly, who looked at oral solid dosage forms, commercial products over the past 10 years. And I refer to that present publication also that we have in the list of references for you. I would like to switch to manufacturing and just share a couple of thoughts on first development and clinical supplies phase, and then commercial manufacturing. For where during the development phase, we probably follow that switch from liquids to solids. With respect to excipients, beside using what we always propose, the generally accepted excipients, you may also want to look at availability at large scale and have maybe more than one supplier for such products. And when it comes to handling administration, you may test concepts in the clinical phase that then would define how the commercial product is ultimately used. For commercial product manufacturing, you may want to consider upfront large volumes, do a scale up early, and file an appropriate batch size already in the original filing, if that's possible. Always think about reducing costs and maybe think about local manufacturing. From manufacturing, let's go to supply chain. And here I would like to mention maybe not so positive aspect of a challenge. Counterfeiting of pharmaceutical products is a big issue, particularly in regions where NTDs are prevalent. Information on the extent of counterfeiting varies a lot, but just a thought that children could be affected by this is really hard to tolerate, in my personal opinion. We don't have time to go into this in more details. I just would like to raise the awareness and maybe stimulate the discussions you can have when you develop new products. There's another challenge. So let's look at the next slide. Another challenge, but that's a good one. We are living in a rapidly changing environment. And this is particularly true also for those regions where neglected tropical diseases are prevalent. And just very recently, there was a lot of traffic in social media, but it drew my attention. A Nigeria-based company called Lifebank received a prize, an African Netpreneur Prize, sponsored by Chinese billionaire Jack Ma. That company is using drones to deliver blood products from blood banks to hospitals. And there are other companies, even in the non-profit sector, that are using drones and teaching people in those regions how to use drones. So who knows, maybe in the future when you develop new products for those regions, you might be asked, is your product compatible with delivery by drones? This is just a quick thought into the future and showing that thinking out of the box is really important. I would like to move on to another environment that is changing, maybe a little bit less rapidly, regulatory processes. So let's look at the regulatory processes from a global perspective. You are all familiar already with US and European regulations. I'm not covering that, but when you go into neglected tropical diseases, into all those regions, you have many countries with national health authorities to go through. There is some regional harmonization ongoing, but more work is needed. What I would like to emphasize today is WHO processes. There are two that I'm mentioning. The first, the pre-qualification process, and I'll have another slide on that. But first, let's look at this collaborative registration process, because if you go through a pre-qualification, which is almost like a submission and an approval, then the assessment report and the inspection reports are going to be shared by WHO with individual health authorities, thus accelerating and facilitating the review and approval process, and this is really significant. Also, if you work with compounds that are already generic, there is a good chance that those might be covered by compendia, like the International Pharmacopoeia, and you may have to follow those as well. Next slide is now having a look at this pre-qualification process. The definition of the pre-qualification process, I would refer to WHO's website. It's all about developing standards of quality, safety, and efficacy so that health resources and health outcomes can be improved. With the next slides, I would like to go a little bit deeper into this pre-qualification process. And we are switching to the, okay, thank you. So the pre-qualification process, first of all, let's talk about the scope. The scope is really limited to those therapeutic areas where these diseases fall into, and also limited to compounds that are in WHO treatment guidelines or on list of essential medicine. So the scope is a little bit is defined, and then if a product qualifies or falls in that scope, there are two pathways that WHO describes also on their website. One is the multi-source generic products approach. Some of that's a full submission, full review, and inspections of the manufacturing sites. If you're working on an innovator product or a generic that has already been approved by other stringent health authorities, this process may be abbreviated and easier. There are additional processes like the EMA Article 58 that I'm not going into more detail. The objective of the pre-qualification process is really to establish worldwide standards. There's a big emphasis on tropical climates and stability to meeting those requirements. And I understand WHO also expects that full testing of API is done at the drug product manufacturing site. The dossier follows CTD structures, but additional specific templates for summary modules are required. The impact of going through this and having a pre-qualification is that then your product would qualify and enter the procurement processes of such organizations that do buy product and do distribution donation programs. WHO offers specific training for that process. I would recommend to follow. The process, if we can quickly go through that in the box on the left side. No, let's go back. Okay, the box on the left side. So there is first a step of expression of interest, a dialogue with WHO. Would your product qualify? And then what I would highly recommend is to have a pre-submission meeting early on, like a pre-IND meeting, and WHO is offering those, to clarify expectations by WHO. Then after the development phase, once you have done your work and submit a dossier, there's a screening and an assessment period. There are GMP inspections of the manufacturing site, and then qualification would be obtained. And then there is a process for post pre-qualification variations when you scale up or extend your shelf life. So we have discussed now the process, and I would like to have one more slide to share with you on organizations. Unlike the products you may develop within a R&D organization, doing this for neglected tropical disease, most likely you will work with a lot of different organizations. There are many organizations who define scope and define the need. There are organizations that come up with funding for this type of work. And what I would like to stress is, and maybe as a takeaway message, that you most likely will work with public-private partnerships where government organization, companies, philanthropic organizations, experts in a specific disease come together and form alliances to promote the development and ultimate access of products for those diseases. On the pediatric formulation side, I would like to mention the IQ Consortium sponsoring this webinar. There is also a European organization, the European Pediatric Formulation Initiative, and we are in the process to starting an Indian Pediatric Formulation Initiative to bring this whole effort more global. If you do that, you're going to be watched. Next slide, please. So there's actually an organization called Access to Medicine Foundation that will look at what you're doing. So companies are invited to submit information on their portfolio. And this foundation is then ranking companies on their efforts. How much effort do they spend in R&D on new products to combat those diseases? Another outcome of this effort that's also very useful is that this effort also gives a gap analysis. So this Access to Medicine Foundation is publishing what are all those diseases and where is activity going on, undertaken, and where is still a big need to have medicines or vaccines or diagnostics or vector control products. We have now looked at processes and a few general comments. To give the big picture, I would like to dive now into a couple of specific examples to illustrate what has been done or what can be done, and I hope that this is useful for everyone in the audience. I start with soil-transmitted helminth infections. Those are intestinal worm infections. I know we are approaching lunchtime in the US, but this is really a big problem. And about 1.5 to 2 billion people are affected by intestinal worms, and about 850 million children. That's more than the US and the European entire population combined. These worm infections are not deadly, but they really affect the health status of people. Interestingly, this year, Michael Kramer from Harvard University and others obtained a Nobel Prize in economics. And Professor Kramer did some work in the late 90s, field work in Western Kenya, demonstrating how deworming programs benefit children's health and improve school performance and education. WHO recommends that if the local prevalence is more than 20%, that some mass drug administration is being done. And there's a nice review article by Majid and others recently published that reviews these efforts and also nicely shows the pros and cons of such efforts. Donation programs are mostly supported by donations of albendazole and mebendazole. In the future, I think more new NMEs might also be needed. I would like now to go with the next slide into one specific example of mebendazole. Mebendazole is an old compound, has originally been launched in 1969, so maybe before many of you in this audience have been born. And more recently, through the London Declaration, effort was made to extend the age range of this program. Currently, there is a regular tablet being donated to school-age children, but the intention was to include preschool children as well. So this is work that I did with my team at Janssen, and we were challenged to develop an age-appropriate formulation, which in a way is not so which is easy to do, but here the request was to have one product, just one same formulation that would work for everybody, for all age groups. The reason that this is possible is it's a locally acting drug with an established safety and efficacy profile. So the formulation experts were then really challenged, but came up with a great solution, a chewable tablet that all the kids can chew, and chewable tablet that at the same time is rapidly disintegrating when in contact with water. It's shown on this slide in the lower left corner. This tablet can, with water, then disintegrate and form a soft mass, a little bit like baby food, and with the sweetener and flavor in it, it's quite acceptable to children. An interesting detail, when we showed this to people in the field, they said, well, we cannot measure small quantity of water to be added. We don't have oral syringes like you show in this picture. You need to do it the other way around, pre-filled or fill the spoon maybe halfway and add that tablet. Then it works also in the field. This is a nice example to show that you have to talk to people who are actually distributing these products. You have to talk to the people in the field. The regulatory pathway for this example was so FDA approval first, and then a WHO pre-qualification. The pre-qualification, as I mentioned before, required also full API testing at the drug product manufacturer, and also polymorph specs for the product, not only for the API, were included. This project is also in partnership with API manufacturer Hanjiang Pharmaceutical in China and Recipharm, formerly Lusso Medicamenta in Portugal, to make the drug product or finished pharmaceutical product, as WHO terminology is. This donation program will replace the current tablet with this new chewable tablet, and J&J Janssen have committed to donate 1 billion doses over the next 5 years. Would like to switch to another example, staying with worms, but this time really nasty worm, Schistosoma species that lives in the blood, affects vital organs, and has a complicated life cycle, as shown on this slide, where eggs are shed and enter the fresh water, where there is a snail as an intermediate host, and then cercarias are released and re-enter people who stand in that water that is affected. This cycle leads to schistosomiasis or bilharzia, with a need, according to WHO, of more than 200 million people who require treatment, particularly for children. That's the section highlighted in yellow. This disease causes anemia, stunted growth, impaired learning ability, with devastating consequences for the lives of the very young children. So it's really the right thing to do something, either through mass drug administration or through improvements in sanitation and hygiene. Currently, and let's go to the next slide, there is no age-appropriate formulation for children. And there is a group called the Praziquantel Pediatric Consortium that is changing that. That group just started the pivotal phase 3 study in Kenya right now, and I was mentioning the importance of having many organizations working together. If you look at the box on the right side, it's amazing how many organizations are teaming up on this, two larger pharmaceutical companies, a tropical institute, a manufacturing organization in Brazil, and experts and academia to make progress. Now, what is that progress? The next slide goes into CMC. And if we switch to the next slide, please. Oh, oops. All right, Praziquantel Pediatric. This slide, first of all, shows the current 600 milligram tablet for school-age children and above. It's a large tablet. There's a bad taste, not ideal for young children. So this consortium formulated a target product profile, TPP, and defined what the new product for younger children down to 3 months of age should really do and look like. And I would like to congratulate the scientists doing this work. They found that the current product is a racemic mixture of the L and the D praziquantel, but only one is really the active one, and the inactive one is mostly responsible for the bitter taste. So the new product will just have the L form, the L enantiomer, and is now being introduced in a clinical study, and the consortium is planning for or targets a 2020 launch of this product. Such a big effort, going to the next slide, is only possible with a big support, also financial support. So in addition to this consortium, there is also a global schistosomiasis alliance that is rallying support and come up with funding for these efforts, so that hopefully in the end children can reach their full potential and live healthier and happier lives. With the next slide, I would like to finish with learning from the big three infectious diseases, particularly from a CMC perspective. The big three, HIV, malaria, tuberculosis, obviously they go beyond the low and middle income countries. There's a lot of efforts, a lot of research going on, a lot of funding, a lot of partnerships, and even some philanthropic organizations like Tuberculosis Alliance and maybe Bill Gates Research Institute are looking into their own drug discovery and development. The key message here is that for CMC, it doesn't really matter whether it's big three or neglected tropical disease. I think we can learn from each other, and I would like to illustrate that with the next slide from HIV/AIDS. It's a little bit of a busy slide, but in the top section, we are looking at the challenges. In this area, you have a lot of fixed dose combinations, bringing 2 to 4 actives together in one tablet. Not surprisingly, these tablets then can become rather big and not suitable for young children. Also, a challenge is that the ratio of those actives may differ across age groups. If that's the case, that would result in additional formulation or strength, or definitely in additional SKUs. Out of the partnership with the Drugs for Neglected Disease Initiative and Indian company Cipla, a taste mask granule formulation has been developed that can be given with sprinkle capsules, and all the learnings from these efforts have also been recently pooled, and many organizations work together, and also some colleagues in this call have contributed to that toolkit. It's basically a compilation of information how to do research and development of pediatric antiretroviral drugs and formulations, and this is now available. They have a reference there, and particularly the contribution was made to module 5 on acceptability. So that's a great example of how all the learnings can be pulled together and shared, so you can take advantage of that if you develop your own product. Last slide is maybe a look into the future. This is also from the HIV field. We are used to the solid oral dosage forms, tablets that are taken on a daily basis. So new ideas have now resulted in NDA and MAA filing. there are two compounds, two different formulations of rilpivirine and cabotegravir, two anti-HIV compounds with different mode of action. One developed by Janssen, the other one by WIF, a company specialized in HIV. And they have been submitted. And what I would like to just share is when we talk about long-acting injectable, those are nano suspension in the case of rilpivirine, and they have a potential to really improve convenience and compliance by just injecting this product once a month. Those nano suspensions have their own challenges, and I just would like to point out that stabilizing excipients might be needed, and then obviously local injection tolerability of these also needs to be tested, and this has been published in a paper by Jamanza. So this example here maybe shows how the future could look also for some of the neglected tropical diseases. Maybe we'll know more when we celebrate next year's Children's Day. With that, I would like to conclude. And in my summary slide, just say that we have now shared some aspects of what to consider when developing age-appropriate formulations for neglected tropical diseases. I have shown complexity doing that, and also have a call for action that you, as a formulation scientist, would reduce that complexity when it comes to the formulation, when it comes to administration and dosing. We talked about the supply chain and its challenges, keep the stability in tropical climate in mind, suggestion to think about local manufacturing. Always keep costs in mind, reduce costs. Costs are mostly driven by API costs, but also as a formulator, you can make a contribution in reducing costs. And this is ultimately driving whether a product then offers access in the world or not. We see a trend from towards solid dosage forms. I think it will continue. We shared with you some highlights of the WHO pre-qualification process, and with a key message to really engage in a dialogue with WHO if you think about that pathway. And maybe the most important lesson from today is that these are complex programs. Nobody can do this on his or her own, and working together in partnerships is really critical. Next slide, we have a list of selected references that you will have access to with the handouts that we will send to you. And my very last slide is then to say thank you to you for your attention. And I hope that you enjoyed this way of celebrating the Universal Children's Day today. I'm handing now over to David and Maya-Leah for questions.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for the excellent presentation. And we have a question from Marcus Weekend from Merck. This is regards to the sweetener that you will recommend for a pediatric tablet. For example, sucralose may form PGTIs at high temperature.
So the question is about selection of sweetener. Yes, you have to obviously whatever sweetener that you select, include that in the original compatibility studies and in your long-term stability study. I don't have more specific recommendations, but I think like any other component of a formulation that may be required. We have used it in the mebendazole formulation that I shared successfully.
And the next question from Robert Choi. Robert would like to know your opinion on the development of formulations for fecal microbiota transplant for children in low countries, and especially for treatment of malnutrition or enteric infection.
Could you repeat the question, please?
So the question from Robert is, what is your comment on the development of formulations for fecal microbiota transplant, especially for treatment of malnutrition or enteric infection?
This is an area that I'm not experienced. I would have to maybe invite another expert. Maybe we can capture that question and respond separately to that.
Okay, sounds good, Daniel. So another question, I think you shared on an example from mebendazole, and highlighting your lessons learned that liquid is not preferred due to the need for syringes. So what is your thought on liquid formulation for the future? Are we moving directly off from liquid, or there is still a need for liquid for this pool of patients?
I think there is still a need for liquid formulations. Keep in mind in those cases where small increments in dosing and dose flexibility would be important. For instance, like for some cancer products, we may still consider liquid formulations. Those may not be the indications that fall under the neglected tropical disease category. And when you think liquid and high temperature for storage, also primary container and shipment and the weight involved, I really think that for neglected tropical diseases, we should try go with solid dosage forms.
Okay, thank you. And in your slide, you mentioned about the donation provided by Janssen until 2025. So what happens after 2025?
That's a great question that I'm not in a position to answer. I just would like to make a general comment that, and this is also going back to a comment that a colleague from UNICEF made at the UPFI panel discussion, that ultimately I think the objective should be that countries will be able to, maybe through their economic development, to become sustainable, and maybe in the future these products will be affordable in those countries, so you do not have to donate anymore, and that those all the funding that is currently used for donation might be applied to new challenges, new diseases that would emerge and would require again a donation effort. So I really think that certain diseases that we are treating now through donations, or preventing now through donations, should eventually switch and be supported through a sustainable, maybe local approach.
Okay, thank you. We have another question from Yvonne Ben-Jessel. So Isai, the question is, are there plans to use LA injectable HIV treatment in developing countries?
Sorry, the connection is not that great. What type of treatment?
Are there plans to use long-acting injectable HIV treatments in developing countries?
About the long-acting, I don't have information on that. I showed the long-acting formulation as a potential way of where we could move in the future. I don't have specific information on this topic.
Okay, and then I have another question from Alex Tong. So thank you for the interesting presentation. Alex's question is on what barriers do you see as blocking a company from developing pediatric neglected disease medicine on the earlier stages, since there has been a gap in some of the medication for many years?
Yeah, I think let's face it, it's all a question of economics because like in Europe and in US, you have those incentives. You get extra market exclusivity for your product while doing the pediatric work. And it's this stick and carrot concept. You have to do it, but you get something in return. Now, if the product you would develop under those circumstances could also be used in a setting of neglected tropical diseases or in middle-income countries, then that would be great. Maybe tuberculosis would be an example like that, where there are also examples of licensing these compounds out and doing local manufacturing. But when it comes to really diseases that only exist in certain regions, it goes back to who will be doing that, who will be paying for that. And one model is that philanthropic organizations would pay for the costly development phase, but that then the product would be produced locally at low cost, so it is affordable in those regions, and that the price that would not be high, and that obviously would not be covering the development costs. So that's one option, and maybe that's the key barrier to overcome and find a path with organizations that would support the funding and somebody else who would actually do it and execute.
Yeah. So a follow-up question from Alex. You probably covered some of this earlier. So how might we help speed up this process for development of neglected medicine for pediatrics?
Can you repeat the question?
How can we speed up the process for development of new oral neglected disease drug like feximidazole?
The question is about how can we speed up the process to develop such products. Just a couple of thoughts from my side. One is also a question of priority, and maybe that chart I showed from the Access to Medicine Foundation is really helpful, because there are still gaps where nothing is happening, and that might be the first thing that resources are prioritized, and not everybody is working on the same indication, but that there are also efforts being made for those diseases where nothing is really going on. And then once a target is identified, I think it comes down to maybe like what the Prosequentel for Consortium did. Do you find then the right partners together that complement each other and speed up the process? The other thing is, if you look at the WHO pre-qualification process, I highly recommend that anybody working in that space would really engage in a dialogue with WHO up front, and also understand what are the requirements and what are the pathways to do the development and then get a pre-qualification.
Okay. I have one more question from Arvind Bansal. Daniel, you shared about the Indian Pediatric Formulation Initiative. What do you feel are the top challenges for introducing age-appropriate formulations in developing countries like India?
Thanks for mentioning that. We're really excited about setting up this initiative. I think it will offer also to any scientist worldwide better access to information and processes, how to do that. Specifically for India, I would think there is a need in identifying what are acceptable formulations and ways of administering those in India. So that's one area that I could see would be a priority. And then the other also, and I mentioned this in one of my slides, there are a lot of generic companies in India that develop and manufacture products to combat the neglected tropical diseases. And by putting such an initiative together, that could also offer a dialogue and bridge gap between what is a need and the people who are developing and commercially manufacturing such products.
Thank you again, Daniel, for this highly informative presentation. And we will touch base with you again if there are additional questions. And with that, I would like to thank everyone here for participating in this webinar. And we look forward to seeing you in our next webinars on February 2020. And happy holidays and have a happy new year. I'll pass back to Mahalia.